Hi, I'm Tricia, an organic gardener. I grow organically for a healthy and safe food supply, for a clean and sustainable environment, for an enjoyable and rewarding experience. Did you know that pastures can be good for the environment? Today we're going to talk about a pasture management system called Managed Intensive Rotational Grazing. This means you get more forage, you can graze earlier in the spring, and you can graze later in the fall. The benefits of this system include soil and plant health, which equals lower feed costs for your animals, better water retention, better water filtration, CO2 sequestration, and topsoil creation. Those are all your Asians. The first step is to walk your pasture and take note of its condition. Pay attention to what species of grass and legumes, like clover, are populating your pasture. Do they show a balanced growth, or is one species outgrowing the rest? Pay attention to the pasture's location, drainage, and soil type. Check out our blog for a link to the USDA's Web Soil Survey, which provides detailed soil information. Pay attention to how your animals are grazing the pasture. Are they overgrazing one area and undergrazing another part? The key concept to managed intensive rotational grazing is to divide the big pasture up into smaller pastures, typically about 8 or more. And this allows the grasses to regrow at the optimal time. This pasture management system allows you to mimic the natural behavior of herd animals. In the wild, the herds stay together, mow down the grass, and then move on to richer pasture. Your pastures can be divided with either permanent fencing or temporary fencing. Electric portable fencing is a great low-cost way to divide your pastures temporarily. Be sure and set aside an area in your pasture that we call the sacrifice area. It's an area that you'll hold your livestock when otherwise you'd let them out into the pasture and they could damage the pasture, such as in wet weather. There are several layouts that work well with this managed intensive rotational grazing. Some examples or layouts are a central sacrifice area where there's water and then gates out to different segments. Another popular layout is a long rectangle with a central lane and shared water troughs. The important part is that each of the grazing areas have access to water. When it comes to actually using your pasture, it's important to wait until the average height of grass is 6 to 8 inches before allowing the animals in. At 6 to 8 inches, the grass has started storing carbohydrates and it's slowed down its growing. It's young and tender enough to be palatable, and it has stored enough energy to regrow. Take measurements in several different areas within the pasture, and then average these measurements together. And don't measure the grass by straightening it up. Make sure and measure it as it's laying down. It can be beneficial if you have multiple types of animals, such as cattle, horses, and sheep, to succession graze them. These animals eat different things and do not suffer from the same types of parasites. Succession grazing can help you make sure the pasture is grazed evenly and help spread the manure of the other species around to fertilize the pasture. Allow the animals to graze until the grass gets grazed down to about 3 inches. This leaves enough of the grass so it can easily photosynthesize and regrow. It's important to rotate the animals based on the condition of the pasture and not by the calendar. After rotating your animals out of a pasture, notice whether they've grazed down evenly or not. If not, you may want to mow or weed eat to about 5 inches. This encourages grass and legume growth that's more palatable, and it prevents the forage from spending its energy on forming seed heads. Harrowing or dragging is a routine task that should be done to help spread the manure, and this should be done in dry weather, and it will help prevent the spread of pests and disease. In dry weather, any parasite eggs in the manure are dried up and exposed to the sun. In wet weather, harrowing can spread diseases and parasites instead of controlling them. Periodically, you should do a soil test. It's likely that if your manure is being incorporated into the soil, things are okay, but you never know if you might need a little bit extra help. If you have issues in your pasture, such as weeds, check out our Pasture Troubleshooting video. A well-managed pasture is an asset to the environment. So, manage your pasture and grow organic for life.